The marketplace was loud, filled with voices shouting prices, footsteps rushing across the stone streets, and the metallic hum of alien machines floating above the stalls. Bright colors flashed everywhere, gold cloth, silver tools, glowing stones for sale. But in the middle of all this light and wealth, there was a shadow no one cared to notice. A thin girl in rags sat near the corner of a cracked wall, her head lowered, her face hidden under dirt and tangled hair. To others, she looked like nothing more than a beggar, another forgotten life in a city that moved too fast. People passed her without a glance. Some sneered. Some laughed cruelly. One alien merchant spat near her feet and said, "Get away from my stall, you make the customers uncomfortable." She did not move. She only pulled her torn blanket tighter around her small frame. Her eyes, though hidden, glowed faintly for a moment. No one saw, except one human. He had just arrived in the marketplace, carrying a small bag slung across his shoulder. His clothes were simple, his boots worn. He was not rich, not powerful, yet he had a calmness in the way he walked, and a warmth in his gaze that was different from the harsh eyes around him. As he passed by, he noticed the girl. Something made him stop. She was not begging with open hands like others. She was just sitting there, silent, as if she wanted to disappear. He crouched down so he was not towering above her. His voice was gentle. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The girl slowly lifted her face. For the first time, her gray eyes met his. They were sharp and full of something he could not name. Fear, anger, sadness, and something deeper. She did not answer. The human opened his bag and pulled out a small piece of bread. "Here," he said, offering it with a small smile. "It's not much, but it's fresh." Her eyes narrowed. She did not reach for it. "I don't need that," she whispered. Her voice was rough, as if she had not spoken in days. The human tilted his head. "Then what do you need?" Her lips trembled, but she pressed them together and said nothing. Around them, people were staring. A tall alien guard laughed loudly and pointed. "Look at the human, wasting time on trash." Others joined in the laughter. But the human did not rise, did not walk away. His eyes stayed on hers. "You're not trash," he said quietly, but firmly enough that she heard. The girl's breath caught. No one had ever said those words to her. Not in a long time. She looked down quickly as if afraid someone else might have heard. She clutched her ragged blanket tighter, hiding something beneath it. The human noticed the way she guarded it, but he did not ask. The laughter around them faded as the crowd lost interest. Only the two of them remained in that moment, the noise of the market seeming far away. The human finally placed the bread beside her and stood. "If you change your mind, it's yours," he said. He adjusted his bag and turned to leave. But before he could take 2 steps, the girl whispered, "Wait." He turned back. Her eyes were shining strangely now, though her face was still thin and tired. "Why?" she asked. "Why what?" He said, "Why did you speak to me like that?" The human gave a small shrug. "Because you're a person. Same as me." She stared at him, confused, almost angry. "No one has ever spoken to me this way," she said, her voice trembling. "Not even my own kind." The human did not know what to say to that. He just gave her a small nod, then walked away slowly, disappearing into the crowd. The girl sat frozen, her heart beating fast, under her blanket, her hands pressed against the object she always hid. A small glowing crystal, smooth and powerful, worth more than all the gold in the market. It pulsed softly as if alive. She hated it, yet she could never let it go. She had always believed everyone only cared for wealth, power, and lies. That was why she wore rags, why she hid, why she never trusted anyone. But this human, he had looked at her without greed. He had spoken to her as if she was more than dirt. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she felt the weight of her secret pressing heavier than ever, and in the shadows, not far away, a tall figure watched. His eyes did not leave the girl. He had seen the crystals glow beneath her rags. The girl shivered without knowing why. Somewhere deep inside, she felt danger was coming, but she also felt something else, a tiny spark of hope. The market was still buzzing when the girl in rags slowly picked up the bread he had left. Her fingers brushed against it, then pulled back. She stared at the food as if it were poison. Around her, the crowd kept moving, forgetting her as quickly as they had mocked her. But her mind was trapped on one thought, the human. Why had he spoken to her like that? Why had he looked at her without disgust, without hunger in his eyes? Everyone else only stared with greed or pity or cruelty, but not him. His words had been simple, yet they shook her. "You're not trash." The girl tightened her grip on her ragged blanket. She whispered to herself, "He doesn't know. If he knew, he would be like the others." Her chest ached with a strange pain she didn't understand. Hours passed. The sun dropped low, painting the marketplace in orange light. The girl remained where she sat, watching the crowds thin. She thought the human had left for good, but then footsteps returned. He was back. The human crouched near her again, this time holding a small bag. He pulled out a piece of fruit and offered it. His eyes were calm, his voice steady. "You haven't eaten all day, have you?" The girl glared at him. "I told you I don't need that." He frowned but did not move the fruit away. "You're lying. Anyone can see you're starving." "I said I don't need it," she hissed, her hand tightening on the hidden crystal beneath her rags. The human studied her for a moment. Then, instead of pushing, he simply placed the fruit beside her on the ground. "Then it's just sitting here," he said softly. "Take it or don't, I won't force you." The girl stared at him. Nobody ever left things without expecting something in return. Nobody gave without a price. Yet here he was, walking away again, leaving food without reaching for her blanket, without trying to steal what she hid. Her heart pounded faster. "Why do you keep doing this?" she called after him. He paused and looked back. "Doing what?" "Talking to me," she said bitterly. "Helping me." "You don't even know who I am," the human shrugged. "I don't need to know. You're sitting here alone and I can help." That's enough. The girl's throat burned. She wanted to shout at him, to push him away, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, her voice came out small. "Everyone else calls me trash. Why don't you?" His answer was simple. "Because you're not." Something deep inside her cracked. She lowered her head quickly, hiding her face. She could not let him see her tears. She hated tears. Tears were weakness, but in the shadows someone else had seen. At the edge of the square, a tall alien with sharp eyes watched closely. He had been following her for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Tonight he had seen something unusual, the faint glow beneath her blanket when she clenched it in anger. His lips curled into a smile. He had finally confirmed it. The treasure was real. The human, unaware of the danger, returned the next day. This time he brought warm food wrapped in cloth. He set it beside her without a word. She looked at it, then at him. "I don't need your gifts," she muttered. He chuckled softly. "They're not gifts, just food." "Everyone needs food," she shook her head. "You don't understand. I'm not what you think I am." He raised an eyebrow. "Then what are you?" Her heart raced. For a second, she almost pulled the blanket back to reveal the glowing crystal, to tell him the truth. But fear gripped her. If he saw it, he would change. They all changed. Even the kindest eyes turned greedy when they saw wealth, so she said nothing. She turned her head away, hiding her trembling hands. The human didn't push. He simply sat beside her for a while, silent. That silence was stranger to her than any words. No one ever sat near her. No one ever gave her peace. Finally he stood. "I'll see you again tomorrow," he said. His tone was calm, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The girl's heart thudded. Tomorrow nobody ever came back. Nobody stayed. She wanted to tell him not to return. She wanted to warn him that danger was near, that eyes were watching. But the words caught in her throat. That night, as she curled under her blanket, she stared at the crystal. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. She whispered to it as she always did. "You are my curse. You brought me nothing but ruin." Yet her mind kept drifting back to the human's words. His voice haunted her. "Because you're not." Far away in the dark alleys of the city, the tall alien who had been watching whispered to his companions. "It's her. She hides the crystal. Soon it will be ours." The girl stirred in her sleep, shivering as if she could feel the danger moving closer. She pulled the rags tighter around herself, clutching the crystal. And for the first time in years, she was afraid not only for herself, but for the human who kept coming back. The night was cold, and the city streets were almost empty when the human returned again. He carried nothing this time, no bread, no fruit, no warm meal. Only his quiet presence. The girl in rags noticed this at once. She sat hunched against the wall, her blanket tight around her body, guarding the crystal beneath. "You came back," she said, her voice sharp, though her eyes betrayed surprise. "Of course," the human replied. He sat down beside her as if it were his usual place. "I said I would." She turned her head, studying him carefully. "Why? Why would someone keep coming back to her? Most people looked once and never again. She decided to test him. "What do you want from me?" she asked. He glanced at her. "Nothing." Her hands tightened under the blanket. "Liar, everyone wants something." "I don't," he said simply. "I just don't like seeing someone treated the way you are. That's all." She opened her mouth to argue, but something in his tone silenced her. He meant it. He really meant it. Still, she could not let him too close. She had lived too long hiding. The crystal pulsed softly under her rags, and she felt its warmth burn against her skin. For a long moment they sat in silence. Then as the market lights dimmed, she rose suddenly. "Follow me," she whispered. The human frowned. "Where?" "Just follow," she said, her eyes sharp and urgent. Against his better judgment, he did. She slipped into the narrow alleys, her bare feet silent on the broken stones. The human followed close, his boots crunching softly. The air grew colder, the streets darker. They passed ruined houses, cracked walls covered in moss, and strange graffiti scratched into stone by forgotten hands. Finally, she stopped before a half-collapsed building at the edge of the district. Its roof sagged, its windows shattered. To anyone else, it looked abandoned. She slipped inside through a gap in the wall. The human hesitated, then followed. Inside, the air was still and heavy with dust. The girl moved carefully through the shadows until she reached the far corner of the ruined house. She knelt down, pulled aside a loose slab of stone, and revealed a hidden space beneath the floor. The human's eyes widened. Inside, glowing light spilled out, blue and silver, swirling like living fire. Strange crystals, ancient coins, and objects of alien craft lay stacked together, glittering in the dark. The light danced on the girl's face, revealing her features clearly for the first time. Her cheeks were thin, her skin pale, but her eyes were sharp, proud, almost royal. The human stepped closer, speechless. She looked at him coldly. "Now you know. This is why I hide. This is why I wear rags. If anyone sees this, they will kill me for it." Or worse, he stared at the wealth before him. It was more than enough to buy ships, armies, entire cities. He had never seen such treasure in his life. For a moment, his heart pounded with the shock of it. He could almost feel the weight of greed pressing into his chest. The girl saw his silence. Her voice hardened. "This is the part where you change. This is the part where your eyes turn like theirs." But the human shook his head slowly. "I don't care about this," she blinked, stunned. "Don't lie." "I'm not lying," he said firmly. His eyes stayed on hers, not on the treasure. "This isn't what I came here for. I wanted to know you, not what you're hiding." Her breath caught. Nobody had ever said that to her. Nobody had ever looked away from the wealth. For the first time, her heart trembled in fear of something new, trust. Still, suspicion rose in her. "If you don't care, then why keep coming back?" "Because you matter," the human said. "Not this." The girl stared at him for a long, long moment. Her throat tightened, words refusing to form. She turned away quickly, pulling the slab back over the treasure and covering it again with dirt and rags. The glow disappeared, leaving only shadows. She wrapped her blanket around herself tightly, hiding once more. "You shouldn't have followed me," she whispered. The human studied her, but before he could speak, a sound cut through the silence. Footsteps. The girl froze. Her eyes darted to the broken wall. In the dim light outside, she saw a shadow move. Tall, sharp, dangerous. Someone had followed them. Someone had seen. Her stomach dropped. She grabbed the human's arm suddenly. "We have to go, now! Who was that?" he asked, his voice tense. Her voice was a whisper of fear. "Hunters." The word carried weight. The human's chest tightened, but he nodded. Together, they slipped out of the ruined house, running deeper into the alleys. Behind them, the tall figure stepped into the broken home and smiled at the faint traces of blue light still glowing on the dirt floor. He had seen enough. The treasure was real, and he would not stop until it was his. The alleys were dark and narrow as the girl pulled the human by the arm. Her steps were quick, silent, like someone who had been running all her life. The human followed, his heartbeat racing, though his mind was still fixed on what he had just seen. Wealth beyond imagination, enough to change everything. But none of it mattered now, not with danger close behind. The girl's eyes darted back. She saw shadows moving, more than one. The hunters were coming. She whispered, her voice sharp but low. "Don't look back. Just run." The human tightened his bag strap and kept pace with her. His boots struck the stones with heavy thuds, echoing in the silence of the sleeping city. The girl, barefoot, moved faster, weaving through turns and broken paths, pulling him along. Behind them, voices rose. Deep, cruel voices. She's here. Don't let her escape. The human glanced over his shoulder and saw 3 tall figures pushing through the alley. Their armor glinted faintly in the moonlight, and their weapons gleamed with deadly light. His stomach dropped. These were no ordinary thieves. They were trained hunters, the kind who tracked prey across planets. Who are they? He whispered as they ran. Enemies, the girl said coldly. They followed me for months. They know what I carry. The human's chest burned with every breath, but he didn't slow. Why me? Why show me all this? Her voice cracked, though she tried to sound strong. Because you were different. That answer struck him harder than the chase. Different. That single word carried the weight of her fear, her loneliness, and her trust. A blast of energy struck the wall beside them, scattering stone and sparks. The human flinched, shielding his face. The hunters had started firing. The girl yanked his arm. Move! They sprinted through another alley, turning into a maze of crumbling houses. The human stumbled once, but she pulled him up with surprising strength for someone so thin. He could feel her hand trembling, but her grip never loosened. At last, they ducked into a ruined storage shed. The girl pressed her finger to her lips, urging silence. Both of them crouched low, listening. The hunter's footsteps echoed outside. Heavy, unstoppable. One of them growled, "We saw her here. Spread out. She won't escape this time." The girl's chest rose and fell in quick breaths. She whispered so softly the human almost didn't hear. "If they catch me, they'll take the crystal, and then everything is lost." The human studied her face, pale in the faint moonlight through the broken roof. Her eyes were fierce but also afraid. He placed his hand over hers, steady and calm. "I won't let them." She stared at him in shock. Nobody had ever said that before. Nobody had ever chosen to stand beside her. The sound of boots drew nearer. The shed door creaked as if touched from outside. The girl's heart pounded like a drum. She was ready to run again. But before the hunters could break in, the human spotted a narrow gap in the back wall. He pointed silently. She nodded. Together they slipped through the hole, crawling into the dirt and weeds outside. The hunters smashed the door open seconds later, their weapons raised, but the shed was empty. "Split up," one barked. The chase continued. The girl led the human toward the old city ruins where broken towers leaned like skeletons against the night sky. There were places to hide here, but also places to be trapped. The air was cold, carrying the sound of their pursuers. Suddenly, the girl stopped. She held up her hand, her ears sharp. "They're ahead of us too," she whispered. "They've cut us off." The human's chest tightened. They were surrounded. For a moment, fear surged in the girl's eyes. She pressed the blanket tighter around her and whispered bitterly, "This is what happens when anyone gets close to me. They all get hunted." The human shook his head. "No. This is what happens when the wrong people see what you carry. It's not your fault." She stared at him, stunned by his calmness. The human's voice carried no blame, only steady resolve. The hunter's shadows appeared at the edge of the ruins, weapons glowing. The girl and the human were trapped. The tallest hunter stepped forward, his grin sharp. "At last. The runaway and her friend. Hand over the crystal and maybe I'll let you live." The girl's grip tightened on the crystal hidden under her rags. Her whole body shook. She knew what would happen if they took it. Civilizations had fallen for less. But for the first time, she wasn't thinking only of herself. Her eyes shifted to the human beside her. He had no weapon, no armor, no reason to stand here. Yet he stood anyway. The hunter raised his weapon. The human stepped in front of the girl. His voice was firm, though he had no idea what would happen next. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." For a heartbeat, the hunters laughed. They saw only a weak human with nothing but courage. But in that same moment, the girl's fear twisted into something else. Hope. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I was wrong to hide forever." The hunters raised their weapons higher. The night burned with blue light and the chase had only just begun. The ruins were silent after the chase. The girl and the human had escaped by slipping through broken tunnels beneath the old city, their lungs burning, their feet raw from running. Now far from the marketplace, they sat near a small fire the human had built from scraps of wood and broken furniture. The flames flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the cracked walls. The girl sat wrapped in her blanket, knees drawn close to her chest. The crystal was hidden beneath the folds of cloth, its glow faint but steady. She had never let anyone this close to her secret before, but tonight she felt different. She felt cornered by more than the hunters. She was cornered by her own silence. The human sat across from her, quiet. He didn't ask questions. He didn't press her for answers. He only stared into the fire, his face calm but his body tense, ready for danger. That quietness made her uneasy. She wanted him to demand the truth because she knew she could not carry it alone anymore. Finally, she spoke. "You wonder why they chase me?" She whispered. The human looked up, his eyes steady. "I do. But I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." Her throat tightened. No one had ever given her such space. Most would have ripped the secret from her by force. She stared into the flames. "I was not always like this," she said, her voice trembling. "Not always hiding. Not always wearing rags." She lifted her head slightly, her gray eyes glinting in the firelight. "I was born in a palace." The human froze. He had suspected she was more than she seemed, but the word palace made his heart jolt. She went on, her voice soft but heavy with pain. "My people ruled vast lands. My family was wealthy beyond measure. The crystal was one of many treasures, an ancient relic older than our bloodline. It was said to hold power enough to buy empires, to build or destroy worlds. My father guarded it with his life. My mother taught me it was sacred. To me, it was just another stone." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. But then betrayal came. Not from strangers. From inside, my family's own council turned against us. They killed my parents in the night, slaughtered the guards, and burned the palace. They wanted the crystal. They wanted me. The human's chest tightened. He said nothing, but the fire in his eyes grew. "I escaped," she whispered, clutching the blanket tighter. "I ran through blood and fire with only this crystal in my hands. Since that night I've worn rags. I've hidden, because wealth brings only death. Because power makes everyone a liar." Her voice broke, but she forced it back. "Do you understand now? This is why I refuse gifts. This is why I hate kindness. Because I know what comes after. No one cares about me. They care about it." She pressed her hand against the crystal under the rags. Its glow pulsed faintly as if listening. The human leaned forward. His voice was calm but strong. "I don't care about that stone." She snapped her head toward him, her eyes blazing. "Everyone says that until they see what it can do." "I've seen it," he said firmly. "And I still don't care." Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, but fear wrapped around her heart like chains. Why are you different?" The human took a slow breath. "Because I've lost things too. Maybe not a palace, maybe not treasures, but I know what it feels like when no one sees you. I know what it feels like to be left behind. And I promised myself I would never treat another soul that way." The girl's eyes burned. Her walls were crumbling, though she tried to hold them up. She whispered almost to herself, You see me?" He nodded. "I see you." Those 3 words broke something deep inside her. Her chest ached, but this time not from fear. She pressed her forehead against her knees, hiding her face. Silent tears slipped down her cheeks. She hated herself for crying, yet she could not stop. The fire crackled softly. For a long while they said nothing. Only the night spoke, carrying distant winds and the faint cries of hunters still searching far away. At last, the girl lifted her head. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse. "You're a fool," she said, but her tone lacked anger. "A fool for staying with me? They will kill you too." The human smiled faintly. "Then I'll be a fool. But I won't leave you." Her breath caught. She turned her gaze back to the fire, her fingers brushing the crystal. For the first time, she felt its weight lessen. Perhaps for the first time she was not carrying it alone, but the piece was fragile. Unseen by either of them, far in the ruins, a pair of glowing eyes watched from the shadows. One of the hunters had found their trail. His communicator buzzed quietly as he whispered, "I've found them. They won't escape the next time." The girl shivered, her instinct sensing something close. She glanced at the human, her heart pounding. She had confessed her past, but the future was closing in fast. The firelight danced on their faces, but beyond the walls, darkness moved. The hunt was not over. The night dragged on, cold and restless. The girl and the human had not slept, though the fire had long burned down to glowing embers. Every sound outside the ruins made her tense. Every gust of wind made her clutch the crystal tighter beneath her rags. She knew the hunters were close. She could feel it in her bones. Just before dawn, the silence broke. "Child," a voice called softly from the shadows of the broken city. "Is it truly you?" The girl froze. That voice, familiar, smooth, almost kind. She turned slowly toward the sound. From the mist stepped two aliens in fine clothes, their eyes bright with recognition. They looked nothing like the hunters. They looked like people she had once known. One of them, an older alien with silver markings on his skin, stepped forward and spread his hands. "It is you! We thought you were lost forever. Praise the stars you survived." Her chest tightened. "Counselor Wren?" she whispered. Memories flooded her mind. This man had stood in her father's court. He had spoken sweet words when she was a child. He had sworn loyalty to her family. The human glanced at her, his brow furrowed. "Do you know them?" She hesitated. "I did, long ago." The other alien, a woman draped in blue cloth, nodded eagerly. "We searched for you. All this time. Your people need you, little one. Come with us. We will protect you." The girl's heart pounded. Their voices were warm, but too warm. Her instincts screamed at her. She had trusted counselors once before. That trust had burned her life to ashes. Still, the hope of safety stirred inside her. She whispered almost to herself, Maybe it's real. Maybe they truly came for me." The human's hand touched her arm gently. His voice was low, steady. "Careful. They want something." She looked at him sharply, fear mixing with doubt. "How can you know?" "Because I've seen eyes like theirs before," he said. "They're not looking at you. They're looking at what you carry." Her breath caught. She turned back to the counselors. Their smiles were wide, but their gazes kept drifting to the bulge beneath her rags, the faint glow of the crystal. Counselor Wren stepped closer. "You don't need to hide anymore. You don't need to live like this. Give us the relic, child, and we'll take you home. You'll be safe again." The girl's body trembled. She wanted to believe the word home. But the way he said it, the way his hands reached forward just slightly, it was the same hunger she had seen in every other pair of eyes. The human stepped in front of her, blocking their path. "She's not going anywhere with you." The counselor's face darkened. His warm tone cracked into steel. "Step aside, human. This is not your affair. You don't understand the power you're meddling with." "I don't need to," the human said firmly. "I only understand she doesn't want to go with you," the blue-clothed woman hissed. "She doesn't know what she wants. She's confused. Look at her, ragged, broken. She needs us." The girl's voice rose suddenly, shaking but strong. "No, I needed you long ago." "And where were you?" "You stood by when my family burned." The counselors froze. For a heartbeat, their masks slipped. Wren's smile twisted into a sneer. "So you remember? Then you know why we can't let you keep the crystal." "You're too dangerous." The girl's blood ran cold. It was true then. These were no saviors. They had been part of the betrayal all along. The human shifted, his body tense. "I told you," he murmured to her. Rage filled the girl's chest. For years she had hidden in fear, blaming herself, doubting everyone. Now the truth burned bright. Her own people had destroyed her life for greed. And here they stood again, smiling as if she were still the helpless child they could control. Counselor Wren raised his hand. Behind him, figures appeared from the mist, armed soldiers waiting for the command. "This ends tonight," Wren said coldly. "Hand over the relic or both of you die here." The girl's hands shook, clutching the crystal under her blanket. For a moment she felt the old fear rise again, but then she looked at the human. He stood steady, unarmed, facing a dozen soldiers without flinching. For her, always for her, something inside her broke free. She rose to her feet, throwing off her blanket. The crystal blazed with sudden light, brighter than the fire, brighter than the dawn. The soldiers shielded their eyes, stumbling back. Wren hissed in fury. "Foolish child. You'll bring ruin on us all." The girl's voice rang through the ruins, strong for the first time. "No, you brought ruin when you betrayed us. This ends with me." The human stepped beside her, his eyes fixed on the soldiers. He spoke softly, just for her. "Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore." Her chest tightened, but her grip on the crystal steadied. For the first time, she felt its power was not a curse, but a weapon she could choose to wield. The soldiers raised their weapons. The counselors screamed orders. The night trembled with tension, and as the first shot cracked through the ruins, the girl lifted the crystal high, ready to face the very ones who had destroyed her life. The ruins shook with the blast of energy weapons. Blue fire cracked through broken walls, scattering stone and dust. The girl stood in the center of the chaos, the crystal glowing like a star in her hands. Its light pulsed with her heartbeat, flooding the night with silver fire. The counselors shouted orders, their soldiers charging forward. But the light of the crystal pushed them back, burning their weapons hot, bending the air around them. It was power unlike anything the human had ever seen. For a moment he thought the world itself would shatter. "Stop this, child," Counselor Wren roared, his face twisted with rage. "You don't understand what you hold. Give it to us before you destroy everything." The girl's voice rang out, trembling but strong. "You destroyed everything the night you betrayed my family. I will not kneel to you again." The soldiers hesitated. Some shielded their eyes, others dropped their weapons in fear. The crystal's light grew brighter, humming like thunder. It was more than wealth, more than treasure. It was a force that could tear the city apart if she wished. The human shielded his eyes, watching her carefully. He could see her face, her anger, her grief, and her fear. The crystal was not only power, it was temptation. It whispered to her, urging her to strike, to burn her enemies, to make them pay. Her hands shook as she raised it higher. She could end them all. She could take back what was stolen. For years she had hidden, powerless, broken. Now she had the chance to unleash everything. But then her eyes fell on him. The human stood with nothing, no weapon, no armor, no power, but his will. Yet he had never left her. He had never looked at her with hunger, only with respect. In his eyes she saw no greed, no fear, only truth. His voice cut through the storm. "It's your choice. No one else's. Whatever you decide, it will be you, not them." Her breath caught. She stared at the crystal, the light shaking in her trembling hands. For so long it had been her curse. For so long she believed it was all she had. But now she understood this power was not her. It did not define her. Slowly she lowered the crystal. The counselors cried out in fury. "No, use it. Do not waste it." But the girl shook her head. Her voice was quiet but unshakable. "I will not be like you." The crystal's light dimmed, softening into a calm glow. The soldiers faltered, confused, their courage crumbling. Without her fury, without her surrender, they no longer knew what to fight for. Wren snarled, stepping forward. "Then you are weak, and the weak do not deserve to live." He raised his weapon, aiming at her heart. But before he could fire, the human moved. He stepped in front of her, arms spread, his voice like iron. "Then you'll have to go through me." For a moment the ruins fell silent. The soldiers looked between their leader and the fearless human. Something shifted in their eyes. Respect. Doubt. The kind of doubt that breaks armies. Wren's hand shook. "Fools, both of you," his voice faltered. He lowered his weapon slowly, realizing his men would no longer follow him into slaughter. The girl's grip tightened on the crystal. She could have destroyed him then. She could have ended him. But instead she turned her back. Her voice carried across the ruins. "Leave, take your greed with you. You will not have this." The soldiers withdrew, uncertain, their loyalty broken. Wren spat bitter curses but retreated into the mist, his power shattered. At last silence fell. The girl stood trembling, her heart heavy, the crystal glowing softly in her hands. She felt the weight of what she had just done, not to unleash it, but to refuse it. That was the true victory. The human stepped close, his voice gentle. "You chose mercy." She looked at him with weary eyes. "I chose myself." Her voice broke. "For the first time, I chose not to let them decide who I am." The crystal's glow faded completely, sinking into stillness. She wrapped it once more in her rags, but this time it felt different. It was no longer her curse. It was simply a burden she had chosen to carry, and perhaps one day to lay down. The human touched her shoulder lightly. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." Her chest tightened. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "You gave me more than respect. You gave me freedom." For the first time in years, she smiled, a small, fragile smile, but real. Together they walked from the ruins, the dawn rising behind them, painting the sky in gold. But far above, in the cold shadows of space, ships stirred. More eyes had seen the light of the crystal that night. More enemies would come. The story was not over. Yet for now, as she walked beside the human, she felt something she had never known before. Hope.